this is a very sophisticated discussion of art history, and yet it is told with such lightness and such clarity.
We had lots of crazy ideas for how to present this movie. At one point, Penn suggested we present it as a video game, so that you'd see like Tim's life force on one side, and that bar would be going down as he's painting along in the painting.
Well, I got an email from Penn. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen him write. It said, "I'm doing nothing but spending time with my toddlers and Teller, and I'm going crazy." He has a young family, and he said, "I need an adult conversation. Can you please come to Vegas?" So I flew out there, and we sat down. And he said, "I don't want to talk about show business, please, or politics. What do you got?" And I said, "Well, what do you know about Vermeer?" And he said, "The painter." I said, "Yeah. Photorealism, saw one of his shows in New York." And I said, "Well, I think I figured out how he painted." He said, "What do you mean?" And I realized that I had a video camera on my belt with a clip on it. And it's that clip, it's in the movie, where you're looking down through the lens in this father-in-law experiment. I had just done that experiment, and I showed him that, and he said, "I totally get how this works. It's very similar to a magic trick. It's something we call mirror masking." And he said, "What are you going to do with this?" And I said, "Well, I want to paint something that looks more like a Vermeer, and maybe write a paper about it or make a YouTube video or something." And he said, "Well, that's a really stupid idea." I just said, "Why?" He said, this could be a movie. We should try to make a movie out of this."
It was Tim and Penn, and then Penn called Teller, who's the de facto director of the Penn and Teller show, and then Penn called me. And so I had an interesting kind of vantage point because Penn and Teller have known Tim for decades, I guess about 25 years maybe, and love him. And I came aboard. I have known Penn and Teller for a long time. I'd worked with Penn doing the Aristocrats, but I didn't know, yes, another film that's really a movie about one joke is kind of like a man trying to paint a painting. These are unmakeable documentaries. About midway through the project, which is, as we said, we kept thinking was going to take a year. Oh, it'll just take one more year. Okay, another year. And about midway through, I fell down the rabbit hole that Tim refers to as Vermeerial disease. And I found myself totally compelled, not by friendship or anything like that, just totally compelled. And for myself, I thought, oh my gosh, if I, who had no native interest in the subject matter, I'm so compelled, maybe it's compelling.
Maybe something that I'm fairly good at is finding the simple thing at the core of something. You need to know a lot in order to follow every step as you're going through there. And I used to be a school teacher. I was a school teacher for 6 years. I taught Latin in a secondary school, which may be good preparation for this movie. Because Latin doesn't have a reputation for being the most interesting thing in the world, and watching a guy painting a painting doesn't sound on paper like it could be, an entertaining and delightful thing, especially when it's really this complicated. So I think he was thinking that probably I would find the plot line in it. And when you have an experience, like when you're done with today, you don't know what the content of your day was until you go back and tell yourself the story of the day. And when you do that, you pick out these little pieces, bits and pieces, and you end up telling yourself the story. Well, in one sense of this is an adventure detective story, right? It's a 350-year-old mystery that Tim solves. In another incarnation of this is Penn telling you a story about his buddy who goes on this crazy adventure. We spent a lot of time really trying to find what was this simple central action that we could hang all of this on. Because it's not a polemic. I mean, this is not Tim going, "Oh, here's how you solve the Vermeer problem." It's really about getting on board with a guy who has an idea and is so willing to do the work of really, really testing that idea, and that it's all on a work of art. It was hard to come up with what turns out to be the key sentence in this, which is, "My friend Tim painted a Vermeer. He painted a Vermeer in a warehouse in Texas." That's the sort of key that unlocked the movie for us. I interviewed Tim about halfway through the process in his warehouse in Texas, which is why it's lit beautifully, just like Vermeer. and I said, Tim, are you going to succeed? And then those opening words of the film, at night when I'm laying in bed. Now, I know that laying is wrong because I'm an old Latin teacher.
Sorry about that, Tiller.
Yeah. But we thought about looping it, but then we thought, no, this is Tim. This is Tim, and we want to be honest about this. But at night when I'm laying in bed thinking about trying to get to sleep, all I can think about is this goal of painting a Vermeer. When that sentence came out as a possibility of opening the movie, then the story suddenly came more and more into focus. But the conversation did continue.
Yeah, it did. Just after that, on the cutting room floor, Teller says, well, if you don't succeed, this is going to be a very different film. And I said, there ain't going to be no film if it doesn't work. He said, oh, yes, there will.
This film couldn't have been made this way even 5 years ago. And it couldn't have been made really, I think, with anybody else but Tim or somebody as savvy as he is to technology. Because a lot of the photography of Tim doing the painting is really a man's autobiographical journal done with cameras that he himself has set up every morning. And when Tim is talking to you from the screen, he's not really talking to me, he's talking to Farley. You'd set up a red camera, right, that was sort of set up like a teleprompter so that Tim could look straight into a Skype feed of Farley debriefing him at the end of every day.
Yeah. One of the things Teller noticed early on, fortunately, was that I couldn't really look into a camera lens and be at all natural. I mean, it's just so foreign to me to be on that side of the lens. And this red camera with the matte box and the wireless antennas and all this stuff. And Teller said, "You're looking at a giant ant that's about to attack you," and it's intimidating. And so Teller wanted me to do this video diary every day, and so knowing that I would be intimidated by this camera, we set up a video Skype with Farley. So I was just talking to Farley, and I saw Farley's face. But I'm looking straight into the camera lens, and that probably has a subtle psychological effect in the film. But I'm talking when I appear to be talking to you, I'm talking to her.
I was a common denominator, like explain this super complicated stuff to somebody who doesn't have a clue, and so that I could understand, which was helpful.
Do you plan to exhibit the painting?
We don't have any plans yet. It's still above my fireplace. And
We did take it to Telluride. When
That's right.
when we premiered the film, we took it to Telluride, and we had this theater that had maybe 600 people in it that were quite delighted by the movie. And Tim walked down the aisle, and they all rose to their feet. And then Tim said, "I have something to show you," and pulled a drape off the picture, and it was really wild. It was people swarmed to the stage and surrounded it like a holy icon. And when people say, does this movie make Vermeer less of a great artist? And you look at their reaction to this painting that this non-painter has done just as a scientific experiment, you go, no. The more you know about how much goes into a work of art, the more you love it.